Welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Marancho, and these are my running back rankings for 2026. Let's get it going. We're going to start at the top in the first round, where I do think Jahmyr Gibbs is the best player you can find. Last season, him and Bijan were tied for 4th overall in running back points per game, so it's quite a toss-up between the two. However, the tiebreaker, in my opinion, goes to Jahmyr Gibbs because David Montgomery has left. 2 seasons ago, when Gibbs had about a month on the field without David Montgomery at the end of 2024, he was insane. He averaged 28 fantasy points per game. I don't expect that to be his average, but that was definitely the best sample size possible for any running back in the NFL. Behind him, though, I do think Bijan Robinson is clearly the number 2 running back. Extremely consistent last year. Like I mentioned, the same amount of total points per game as Gibbs. And Algiers gone. Brian Robinson is not as scary, but I do love the Kevin Stefanski addition. Both guys get a new play caller. Both players are fantastic. 1 and 2 is Gibbs and Bijan. And then I think it's a significant tier break before the next 3 options. But I do think number 3 is Jonathan Taylor. Even though last year he went absolutely nuclear. He was actually better in points per game than Gibbs and Bijan. But Taylor last year was much worse after Daniel Jones got injured. He had an insane run early in the season. Up until that bye week, he capped it off with a 48-pointer in the Germany game against Bijan. However, off the bye, he was much worse. He was actually down to about RB10 in points per game. It just wasn't quite the same thing. So that is the only aspect of it where I do see a world where if Daniel Jones gets hurt, Anthony Richardson comes in, or Riley Leonard, and Taylor's just not the same player. So I'm a little worried about that, but I trust him to stay healthy. And I saw him in person last year. Man, he is amazing. The Chargers had no answer. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, and that can happen in any given game. So I trust Taylor. I think safety net wise, he probably scores the most points of any other running back remaining. He might even outscore Gibbs and Bijan. He did it last year. But Christian McCaffrey was the RB1, and I worry about the workload. His age, his injury concerns, and the offense just being snake-bitten year over year over year. They're already dealing with a bunch of injuries, and he sat out some practice due to tightness. Maybe it was a soft hold-in because he wants a new contract or something. I'm not sure, but the vibes aren't immaculate with Christian McCaffrey at this stage of his career. They could be better. They are still pretty good, and I'm not going to be completely afraid of taking him. But I think in redraft, I'd just rather go Taylor and just have that safety net. But if I was in full PPR, I'll tell you this. I think I would rather have McCaffrey over Taylor. In half PPR, though, I still trust CMC. I have him as a clear first-round pick, but I have him at number 4. The last clear and obvious first-round pick, in my view, is James Cook. And especially with the Jeanty injury just happening, I think I just want to bet on the Bills' offense. I trust the Bills. Joe Brady has really paid dividends for James Cook's career. He did not go off until Joe Brady became the play caller. And now that he's the head coach, if anything, they just lean more into James Cook. So the touchdowns are just a lock in Buffalo. The RB1 playing for Josh Allen is going to be a top 10 running back, no matter what. There's going to be games where he kind of disappears just because he doesn't have to score touchdowns for them to win. But there's going to be other games where he just takes over from the jump, and we might get a 3-touchdown performance by halftime. So Cook is going to average a lot of points this season. I want to bet on the Bills. They don't have that many weapons. It's just Josh Allen, James Cook, and now DJ Moore. But Kincaid isn't a guarantee. The Bills' offense is an extremely safe bet. Give me James Cook, RB5. However, moving forward, I think every one of these players is a second-round pick, and at some point you just have to call your shot and take one guy above the rest. There's a lot of close nuances. I don't think you can have a different order, and I think you're crazy. As long as 6 through 12 are some iteration of these names, I think you are drafting pretty appropriately. But for me, if you watch this channel, you know I'm ranking Hampton above the rest. I trust Mike McDaniel. We've seen DeVon Achane go nuclear in that system. And if you go back 2 years when Achane was a rookie, Raheem Mostert fucking crushed. Raheem Mostert has been fantastic as the RB1, and he was over the age of 30. No one in their right mind is going to tell you that Hampton isn't as good as Raheem Mostert, and I think his skill set not only encapsulates the goal line, he is a 220-plus pound 4'4" running back drafted in round 1, and when he was taken, he was considered a steal. I think he's a perfect fit in this system. They want to run the ball. That's what a Jim Harbaugh, as well as Mike McDaniel offense wants to do. So even if it's a 3-man rotation or a hot hand approach, the best player is overwhelmingly Omarion Hampton. He is a nightmare to tackle, and he is going to truck the opponents. There's a world where he drops 20 plus total touchdowns. We've also seen Jim Harbaugh provide 20 plus touchdowns to his running back in college. Blake Corum had 27 of them that season in Michigan when they won the national championship. And even if Keaton Mitchell has a few house calls, which I do expect, Kimani Vidal has a few extra catches, Hampton is not only the closest thing to a 3-down back they have, but also their prime pass catcher. Last season, he had 34 targets in 9 games. Those games were incomplete due to the injury and recovery. He caught 32 of those 34 targets. Money in the bank in the passing game. So if that catch percentage maintains, he will be a check down monster. We've seen Austin Eckler catch 100 receptions in this offense with Justin Herbert. So Herbert's going to crush. This offense is going to crush, and they want to run the ball. Hampton will be dynamite. He is one of the safest picks, in my opinion. There are some question marks, but I think there's going to be so much more improvement from last year's O-line. He's going to be much better than last season. So Hampton will dominate. I want him on every team. I will take him in round 1 if I have to. Give me Omarion Hampton at 6th overall in my running back rankings. Number 7 is in the division, so don't call me a hater. I think Ken Walker is going to be really effective in the Andy Reid Kansas City Chiefs offense. We've seen Jamal Charles go nuclear, and that's really been the best athlete they've had since he left the team. I know they had Kareem Hunt for a little bit, but still, I think Ken Walker is going to be better than that, and there is absolutely a top 10 floor here, especially off of the injury to Patrick Mahomes. They're going to lean on him a little extra earlier on. They have a week 5 bye, but I think Ken Walker's getting 20 plus touches in all 4 of those September games. So you can start off red hot with Walker, and I think he'll maintain overall top 12, top 10 production all season. But I think any given week in that Chiefs offense with not that many other playmakers, he has the ability to score 2 plus touchdowns and go well over 100 yards. He looks like an 80+% snap share type of guy. I like Emmett Johnson, but I don't think he's a problem like Zach Charbonnet was. The reason Walker went to the Chiefs is because he wanted a bigger role than he had in Seattle. So he wanted to be the guy. That's what the Chiefs are going to make him, and I think you want to bet on Andy Reid and this offense. And we've seen Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco put up consistent top 10 numbers. So I think Ken Walker, a former Super Bowl MVP, going to a Super Bowl caliber roster will be the focal point of the offense for the majority of the year. Rashee Rice has some weird vibes. Kelsey's much older. Worthy can't be trusted. And Cyrus Allen is a rookie. So they're going to run the ball a lot more. Mahomes is not going to be scrambling as often as last year. And I think Walker will be a top 10 play. Him and Hampton are the 2 I feel most confident rotating into the first round if I have to pull someone up now that Jeanty's hurt. So Walker is a great pick. I want him at the 1-2 turn, no matter what. But Chase Brown is a similar bet in a good offense with no one really behind him to threaten him. What more can you ask for? I do think this is a better selection in full PPR formats. He has a Austin Eckler type of role. I think he could be 3rd in catches at the running back position. So an excellent floor play, week in, week out production. And although he kind of struggled earlier in the season, he really dominated once they brought in Joe Flacco to stabilize the offense. We know what we're going to get with Joe Burrow. That's not a problem. So it's just a matter of how much do you trust the Bengals? They only have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown. There is no one else to throw the ball to with certainty. So maybe an Eric All breakout's coming, but I don't fear Samaj Pirine. I don't think Taj Brooks has any relevance until Chase Brown gets hurt. So Chase Brown will just dominate the workload, and that's going to pay some dividends. It might be a bit more inconsistent. The Bengals don't have the same offensive line that the Chiefs or Chargers do, but they are a pass-first team, and Chase Brown will be catching close to 5+ receptions per game. So definitely a safe pick. I think the volume is locked in. If not for his pass-catching workload, though, I don't think I would have him at number 8. I think I'd have him at least behind Derrick Henry, who I have at number 9, and I refuse to keep fading despite the age concerns. Obviously, he's the oldest running back on the board here, but he's just been so prolific. And if you look at the overall season stats, he's probably locked in for another 15+ touchdowns. Playing with Lamar Jackson in an upgraded offensive system, Declan Doyle is going to make this team better. And although Justice Hill catches the passes, there will be at least 1 or 2 screen passes just to keep the defense honest, directed towards Derrick Henry. Once he gets rolling, he's a freight train. You do not want to tackle Derrick Henry. He has stiff-armed people into retirement. So he will have some massive games. There will be a couple instances where randomly he doesn't give you more than 60 rushing yards. And without a touchdown, you might be pretty disappointed. But that's not going to happen more than once or twice. I think in redraft, you can afford a few of those losses. He will dominate when he goes off. And that's going to happen in the 10+ range. He will score 15 touchdowns as long as he stays healthy. So I know he's old. Maybe you're scared, but behind Chase Brown, I think, is even possibly the wrong call. I could put him at 6 and totally justify it. So at 9, I think I might be ranking him a little too low. I really trust Derrick Henry, and so do the Ravens. He's not under contract for just this season. He's also under contract next year. They extended him. So Henry is the man in Baltimore, and the Ravens offense will go crazy. Only if he fumbles the game away will you be upset. But every week you have to start him. He is a top 10 back, in my opinion. Number 10, I think we're still going to trust Saquon, though. In the Eagles offense, I think that O-line is just so good, you can't fade it. However, Saquon was far less productive last season, but the play caller got a significant upgrade over Kevin Patullo. So I think that is going to pay some dividends. Sean Mannion wasn't their first choice. Mike McDaniel said no. It's just a matter of time, though, before he gets hurt. He's also on the older side of things. I do want to handcuff him to Tank Bigsby. Keep him on your radar. Not going to lie, the injury factor is a big part of this, but I'm someone who's drafted Tank Bigsby like crazy in my best ball shares. I am perhaps still rooting against Saquon a little bit, but he's a perfectly fine pick. Volume is unquestioned. As long as he's healthy, he is the man. So if you wanted him as high as 6 as well, I wouldn't fault you for it, but I think Saquon has already peaked. That 2K season probably is not going to repeat. And without A.J. Brown, maybe the Eagles settle for a few more field goals. It could be a bit tougher to run the ball with more stacked boxes now that A.J. Brown is left. So all of those factors combined, I have him towards the lower end of this tier. But I will say this, I would never rank him below Achane or Jeanty based on what we know now. I firmly have the lowest rank on Saquon to be 10th overall at the position. But in my view, he's clearly a second-round pick, not a first-round pick. Number 11 is a really talented player, but I'm not going to lie, I don't like to bet on bad teams, and I have no confidence in the Miami Dolphins. I know he was a check-down machine, hyper-explosive, but I think Tua's check-down rate will be much higher than Malik Willis. Willis is going to run the ball himself at a much higher rate, so I don't expect as many targets for DeVon Achane this season. However, the way the coach talks, he's getting 40 touches every week, and he's going to need help to the locker room because he's going to be so exhausted. I don't like the sound of that. Y'all might really trust him from that workload standpoint, but I do not. I think it's much more likely he gets hurt. He has put on a lot of weight since he was drafted, but he was an injury-prone player in his early career. So I don't know what to make of him. I want to bet on talent, and I still have him as a clear round 2 pick, but only because of volume. I have a very strong inclination and fear that he doesn't score more than 6 touchdowns, and I just don't want to bet on the Dolphins. I like to be entertained on Sunday. I want to watch my players who are on my team when they're in the game. I don't want to give myself another excuse to sit through a Dolphins game. I think in full PPR, he's much more interesting. I think he'll have more targets and catches than Saquon. Henry, probably Walker, and most likely Hampton. I don't think he'll have more than Chase Brown, but it's definitely possible he has even more than CMC. So I don't like that Mike McDaniel left. I don't love the offensive line that much, and I just don't really trust the offense to be in winning game script and giving him the ball when it matters most on the goal line. I just don't trust the Dolphins to convert. So I'm out. I'm not, he's not off my board, but based on the rankings, I need to be at a specific part of the draft to have him on my roster. And for the most part, I'm not that excited. He would have been number 12 if not for the injury to Ashton Jeanty. But despite the sprained ankle, I still think Jeanty is a second-round pick. But I'm not as convinced that he has to go 18th overall or 17th. I could envision a scenario where once Saquon's off the board, you actually pivot to receiver just because you're a little worried about the other two. But Jeanty, I do think, is less safe than Achane. At the moment, I don't know exactly how long the injury recovery timeline is going to be for Jeanty. But if it's a high ankle sprain, which is what it sounded like, it's going to be on the 6-week side of the spectrum. And high ankle sprains are tough injuries to recover from. Rarely are players the same in the same year as they were before the injury. I don't expect him at 100%. The fact that he couldn't put any pressure when it happened is a bad sign, and I have a hard time believing that he's just going to be a lock in your lineup in the month of September. I think they might lean on Mike Washington a little more than expected this season. So Jeanty is hyper talented, but just like Achane in Miami, I don't trust the Raiders. I think that offense is really bad, and I don't want to get stuck having to watch a bunch of Raiders games, especially if the player's already hurt. So I'm not chasing injuries. I'll let them find their way to me, but at the moment, I would take Jeanty behind Achane because I don't think the Raiders are going to be that good if he's not 100%. So I worry about touchdowns for him as well. I could see Jeanty max out at about 6 touchdowns, and that wouldn't be great. Last year, he was tackled behind the line of scrimmage so many times. I just don't think their O-line is something I want to bet on too hard. So that is my RB12, Ashton Jeanty of the Las Vegas Raiders. But one thing's for sure, all these players have to go off somewhere in round 2, if not at the end of the first round. I think they are excellent picks, and to start off with 2 of them would be an advantage. I like that start a lot. Given how the running back position has shaked out this season, I think that's a very safe play to start off RB in your home league. You can always find receiver talent later on in the draft. All right, that's it for part 1 of my running back rankings. Look out for part 2 very soon. We'll be touching on running backs 13 through 27. Also want to say thank you to the Fanspeak Network for providing the graphics for this video. You can find all those Spike Week charts and player breakdowns across the entire league. By following the link down below, you can get the Fanspeak Best Ball Guide for 20% off for the entire year using code BLUNT. I'll see you next time. My name's Adam Riancho, and thanks for watching. Nice and blunt.